Hello, 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 and welcome back to another edition of Fan Talk, your favorite podcast by your favorite fan, yours truly, Kyle Bridgely, in the house on this rainy Wednesday. Believe it or not, this October is going to be the rainiest October in Utah's recorded history. Where was this all summer? It was bone dry all summer, and now it's all wet. October, my dead lawn is now back to green. It's crazy stuff. We got the sign, we got the Rogue One posters. Welcome to Fan Talk. If this is your first time here, Fan Talk is a podcast by the fans for the fans. It's a podcast where we just talk about the world of sports from the perspective of a fan. That's you, that's me, that's all of us, right? You can find this podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. I also upload on YouTube. Video version is on YouTube. It's also on Spotify. Just search Kyle Bridgely Fan Talk for more fantastic fan content. All right, guys, we have a fun episode this week, and we're going to jump right in because it is the biggest game of the year for two Utah teams and a rivalry that goes back to the 80s. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about what other games you should be watching in college football. And of course, I'll be making my weekly NFL picks. After a rough week last week, can I bounce back and gain some ground in this race? And I'll mention a little bit of postseason baseball. So sit back and relax and enjoy as we dive into this wonderful episode of Fan Talk. Let's actually start with Major League Baseball, and I'll be very, very brief because we want to talk football today. That is why we're here. Football we're all for it. But let's mention we have the Final Four. We have the league championships going on in both the American League and the National League. The Mariners have made it to the American League Final for the first time in 24 years. They're currently up 2 games on the Toronto Blue Jays, who are the number 1 seed. Game 3 is tonight back in Seattle. Again, this is a best-of-7 series, so you have to win at least 4. But Seattle already up 2-0. That is huge. And then Dodgers, Brewers on the other side in the National League. The Dodgers got a huge win last night. They're up 2-0 against the Brewers. So are we expecting a West Coast clash here? Mariners, Dodgers, or can our East Coast teams figure it out? Find out tonight and tomorrow. Let me know down below who you think is going to advance to the World Series. All right. I'm so excited for this episode because I did one similar last year where I broke down this huge rivalry game here in Utah. And if you're not from Utah, you maybe don't understand the level or the intensity of this rivalry, but it is known as the Holy War. BYU, Brigham Young University, University of Utah, clashing together to decide who is the best in Utah. Blue versus red, brother versus brother, son versus father. The rivalry has really split families. I know families who are on both sides of the rivalry, and it's quite interesting. I'm going to just go into the rivalry. We're going right for the meat of the meal. Let's talk about BYU. Let's talk about Utah. Let's talk about the Holy War. I'm all for it. So it's actually very interesting because neither team can agree on when the first actual meeting was, the first actual game played. If you ask the University of Utah, they said the first game was played April 6th, 1896, and Utah won 12-4. But if you ask BYU, then the first game was October 14th, 1922, 26 years later, and with Utah winning 49-0. So it just depends on who you ask. They can't even agree on when they played their first game. At least history dictates that both teams played in the same conference from 1922 to 2010. 90 years of being in the same conference, this rivalry has grown into what it is today, the Holy War. Let me just share some statistics with you for all you statistic nerds out there. There have been a total of 102 meetings. They've played 100 times. And the all-time series records, again, it differentiates between Utah and BYU. They can't decide. Utah says that they lead the all-time record with 62 wins, 36 losses, and 4 ties. Yes, they've tied 4 times in the 100 games that they've played. If you ask BYU, leads 59. Utah has won 59 games, has lost 33, and they've tied 4. So at least they agreed that they've tied 4 times, right? The largest victory ever in the series was BYU winning 56-6 back in 1980. Longest win streaks. Utah has won 9 games in a row between 1929 and 1937. They also recently did that between 2010 and 2009. That's why up until 2021, a lot of children had not seen BYU beat Utah. because Utah had won 9 straight in a row. BYU had a 9-game winning streak back in the 80s from 1979 to 1987. The longest unbeaten streak was Utah from 1989 to 1941, where they won 21. But again, they had a couple ties in there, and BYU didn't recognize probably half those games, honestly. And the current win streak, BYU has currently won it twice in a row. They won it in 2021, and then last year they won it as well on a walk-off field goal by my old friend Will Farron. I actually know the kicker for BYU, Will Farron, served in my mission, but fantastic kicker for BYU, walked it off last year. If you remember that game, it was at Rice Stadium, and BYU was a lot better. They were a lot better team than Utah was. Utah was having that really off year where they couldn't really figure out the quarterback position, but they played competitive and almost won that game at home. So obviously the term the Holy War, if we're going to do a little history lesson here, the Holy War kind of stems from this idea that BYU is, if you're not sure, it's a religious-owned school. It's a school that's owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, named after Brigham Young. He's like one of the original prophets of the church. So it's like a private institution owned by the church, whereas the University of Utah is a public institution that, while not owned by the church, obviously in Utah, a lot of members of the church do choose to attend the University of Utah. So the term Holy War, stemming from, a religious university versus a secular university in a state that has a lot of religious people. So it's kind of fun. I kind of like it. It's a unique name. It's a unique label that you can kind of put on it. But as I mentioned before, since so many people in the state of Utah, even members of this church that BYU is owned by, still support the University of Utah. So like I said earlier, you got brother against brother, you got father against son, you got friend against friend. It's really fun. Like, even families are split down the middle on who they support. In my extended family, I have family members who support the University of Utah. I have family members who support BYU. Personally, I went to Utah State, and they're kind of like the third wheel in this three-way rivalry, right? They're like the little brother that is not included in it. And of course, I support the University of Oklahoma. I will not tell you who I support in BYU and Utah. I will remain neutral. That's why I wore green and white and purple and no blue and or red. But it's awesome. It's a fantastic rivalry. I remember as a kid, like, even kids would pick sides, and they'd be like, I want BYU, I want Utah. It's awesome. It's really fun. And we're super excited for it. Again, looking at some of the series history, there were times where Utah dominated. There was times where BYU dominated. As I mentioned before, in the early days of the rivalry from 1896 all the way up to 1941, BYU had only won 4 times, and they tied 4 times as well during that period. Utah continued to dominate the rivalry throughout the 50s and the 60s and even into the early 70s. And it wasn't until 1972 that BYU would win, I believe, pretty much every game for the next 20 years. The next 20 years, BYU would win 18 and Utah would only win 2. So the late 70s, the 80s, and the early 90s were dominated by BYU. Utah would not win like any of those games. They only won twice. Whether it was in Provo or whether it was in Salt Lake City, it did not matter. The script would flip again in the early 2000s. From 2002 to 2019, Utah won 14 of the games and BYU had only won 3. So the script kind of flipped again in the early 2000s throughout all the way up to 2019. And now BYU has won the last 2 and is looking to win 3 in a row for the first time since the early 90s. That's the last time they've won more than 2 in a row, was the early 90s. So what is going to happen? It's going to be so fantastic. I am so excited. I won't be able to go to the game. I didn't go to the game last year, but if you're trying to go, tickets are $335 for the nosebleeds, so empty your bank account. Watching it on TV, honestly, is just as fantastic. Let's look at the actual matchup that is going on. BYU is ranked 15th. Utah is 3rd. This is only, I believe, was it the 3rd or 4th time in the entire history of the Holy War that both teams are ranked. Usually one team's ranked, sometimes neither team's ranked, but this is the 3rd or 4th time that both teams are ranked. BYU is undefeated, 6-0, ranked 15th. Utah 5-1, ranked 23rd. So that just adds an extra layer to the rivalry, an extra layer to the Holy War. Again, this game is in Provo at Lavelle Edwards Stadium, so BYU will have the home field advantage. They're undefeated at home, obviously, because they're undefeated in the entire season. Utah's one loss being at home to Texas Tech. So, BYU Utah. Comment down below. Claim your team now. It is Wednesday. This game's on Saturday. You better claim your team now. I don't want none of y'all claiming your team on Monday when your team won and being like, oh yeah, I was supporting them all along. Claim your team now. Let me know who you think will win. Big noon Saturday. It's the pregame show that Fox Channel puts on. They will be here in Utah, so that should be super fun. The game's not until 6 p.m. The weather should be all right. We might get some rain, could add to the rivalry. We've definitely had some weather games in the past. Rain, sleet, snow, should be super fun. But let me know down below who you think is going to win this year's edition of the 2025 Holy War. All right, guys. While you're not watching that game, there's plenty of other games that are going on this week in college football. And maybe you're listening to this and you're like, Kyle, I'm not even from Utah. I don't even care about BYU and Utah. Like, tell me some other games I could be watching. Maybe my Utah State fans are like, yo, what's up? Whatever. Let those two beat each other up. We want to hear about Utah State. All right, guys, let's jump into that. We're starting on a Friday night. Clear out your plans because there's actually quite a few good games on Friday night if you care to watch. I recommend it. Number 2, Miami is undefeated, and they're playing Louisville's not ranked. They're playing Louisville at home. This should be a fun matchup. This is a matchup where Miami is favored by quite a bit. If they just take care of business, everything will be okay. But something could happen. Louisville could surprise everyone and shake up not just the ACC, but the entire college football world. So watch that game. That game's at 5 p.m. Shout out to my Utah State Aggies. They are at home. This is homecoming week for Utah State. They're hosting the San Jose State Spartans. This game at 7 p.m. on Friday night. So kind of fun because you can watch this game and then tomorrow you can shift and watch BYU and Utah without missing a beat. Interesting how they plan that out. Other games you should be watching. Let's move into Saturday. Number 10 LSU, number 17 Vanderbilt, a battle of 5-1 SEC teams. That game's in the early window at 10 a.m. Staying in the SEC at 1:30. University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, undefeated, number 5, 6-0, goes to Georgia, number 9, 5-1, to battle SEC power weights. This is where college game day is going. A lot of people were saying, college game day should have gone to BYU, Utah. They should have gone to USC, Notre Dame, which we'll talk about in a second. But they decided to favor the SEC once again. That game's at 1:30. And as I just mentioned, USC and Notre Dame, which is probably top 5 rivalries in college football history. USC and Notre Dame always going at it. They're playing. This is a ranked matchup this year as well. USC 20 at 5-1. Notre Dame ranked 13th. This one should be a fun one. This one's going to be in Notre Dame. I really like this rivalry. I'm glad they've kept it up, even though they're not in the same conference. They haven't been in the same conference for quite some time, if ever, and it's just a fun rivalry. At the same time, you could be watching Tennessee and Alabama, another SEC game. There's plenty of games to be watching this week in college football, but the most important one, BYU and Utah. We've waited a long time for this rivalry to be back. Now that they're both in the Big 12, it's fun because now we can have them play every single year, and it's just fantastic. All right, let's move to the NFL, and let me make my picks. I mentioned earlier I did so bad in Week 6. I went 9 wins and 6 losses. There was quite a few upsets that threw everyone for a loop. But regardless, I've dropped. I now have 63 correct picks and 29 incorrect picks. If you're like, Kyle, I have no idea what you're talking about. This is a fantasy football game that you play through ESPN called ESPN Pigskin Pick 'em. All you do is pick the correct winner of each game, and you get points for it. And at the end of the year, you could win $100,000, $1,000, like whatever, but $100,000, giddy up, sign me up. So I make my week picks here. You can join this group. I'll link it down in the description below. Can you outpick me? So far, I'm still first in my group. Surprise, surprise. All right, we're starting Thursday Night Football with an incredible matchup. Now, let me tell you, the Steelers and the Bengals, AFC North. The quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers is a guy named Aaron Rodgers. You've probably heard his name. He is 41 years old. The quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals is a guy named Joe Flacco. He is 40 years old. We have a couple of 40-year-old quarterbacks going at it on Thursday Night Football. Now, if that is not television, I don't know what is. That is absolutely incredible. Steelers, Bengals, I like the Steelers in this one. They're probably the best, or probably the worst 4-1 team. They've only lost one game, but they don't look like a 4-1 team, honestly. I just don't know how they keep winning. It's Mike Tomlin and his voodoo magic. But give me the Steelers in this one in the battle of the 40-plus quarterbacks. We're still in London. We're still doing international games. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they always play in London. The Los Angeles Rams are going to go play the Jaguars in London. The Rams just lost Puka Nacua to an injury, so they might be down on offense a little bit. They still have Devontae Adams. They still have Kyron Williams. They still have some options there. They still have a good defense. Jaguars coming off a tough loss at home against the Seattle Seahawks. I actually like the Rams in this one as much as the Jags. You know me and the Jags. Go Jags. Let's go. Whatever. Give me the Rams in this one to beat the Jags in London. New Orleans Saints and Chicago Bears. Bears coming off a huge Monday night victory against the Washington Commanders. Jake Moody, from disgraced kicker to hero of the Windy City, kicks the game-winning field goal to beat the Commanders. They're facing a Saints team that's frankly not very good. Spencer Rattler's gotten better, but they're just not a good team. This is a team that, like I've mentioned, they're not going to win a bunch of games, but they're going to win some games. I don't think this is one of those games. Give me the Bears and Caleb Williams. Wow, here's the toilet bowl of the week. 1-5 Miami Dolphins versus 1-5 Cleveland Browns. Now, I'm actually quite impressed that half of the people who are playing this game have picked the Cleveland Browns. It's quite interesting. It's about 50-50 right now. I think the Dolphins are favored, even though they're on the road, and I think I am going to pick the Dolphins. They almost beat the Chargers, and the Chargers are a lot better team than the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, the NFL is very volatile week to week, but I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins in this one. Somebody's got to win this game. If it ends in a tie, I'm going to be very mad. Give me the Dolphins. The Patriots are 4-2 and are looking good. They go to Tennessee, where Tennessee have just fired their coach Brian Callahan 6 games into the season because they're 1-5 and their only win coming off an absolutely miracle in Arizona. I like the Patriots in this one. Mike Vrabel's a fantastic coach. He's returning to Tennessee, where he was the coach of Tennessee for many years before they axed him. And Drake May's playing well. That defense is getting better. The Patriots are relevant once again. Overreaction, underreaction? Let me know down in the comments below. Regardless, I'm taking the Patriots in this one. Next, we have an AFC West matchup, the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. Both teams coming off of wins. Both teams, maybe their record is not as good as they would hope. The Raiders being 2-4, the Chiefs being 3-3. This game is an Arrowhead. For some reason, the Raiders always play the Chiefs close. They always find a way to make it close. Last year, the Chiefs had to win one of the games because the Raiders fumbled it in Chiefs territory, and with a couple seconds left, and the Chiefs were able to pull it out. But 2 years ago, the Raiders beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead on Christmas Day. It's a weird rivalry where you never actually quite know what's going to happen. So I'm going to leave it up to fate. What's going to happen? I'm going to pick the Chiefs because that's the smart pick, and they'll probably win. But the Raiders might pull out something that will surprise you, so don't be surprised. We got the Eagles and the Vikings. Okay, who's going to be quarterback for the Vikings? Is J.J. McCarthy going to be able to come back? Is Carson Wentz going to be able to continue to roll? He's played quite well, even though that they've not been able to win all these games. As I mentioned, they lost to the Pittsburgh a few weeks ago in Ireland. But the Eagles coming off 2 bad losses. They just lost to the Giants. They lost to the Broncos a couple weeks ago. They're not looking good. So should I pick the Minnesota Vikings in this one, or should I stick with the Philadelphia Eagles? I want to pick the upset here, but I just feel like the Eagles get this one right. They get back on track. If they do continue to slide, though, then let's raise the alarms, because the defending Super Bowl champions do not look like it at this point in the season. Panthers, Jets. When will the Jets win their first game? They honestly could win it this week. The Panthers are really good at home, 3-0. They just beat the Cowboys, but they're 0-3 on the road. And the Jets played really good defensively last week against the Broncos, but were absolutely abysmal on the offensive side of the ball. Justin Fields threw the ball for -10 yards. How do you do that? Well, it's because you get sacked 9 times. So until this offense starts doing anything, I don't think they'll even beat a team like the Panthers. Don't get me wrong. They can definitely beat the Panthers. It's probably a very manageable opponent. But I'm going to go with the Panthers in this one. Giants at Broncos. The Broncos are playing 2 New York teams. This game's back in Mile High. Their defense is phenomenal. They shut down the Jets. Their offense is so inconsistent. Some weeks it's great. Other weeks, like this last week, it's like pulling teeth. Your only touchdown is to a guy named Nate Atkins. Are you serious? Regardless, I do like the Broncos in this one. It might be another low-scoring affair if the Broncos can't figure out their offense. If they can, they should win manageably. But don't count out these Giants. Jackson Dart Cam Scattaboo, a couple of crazy white guys up there in New Jersey. Like, woo, that sounds like a good TV show. But give me the Broncos in this one. This next one is a game I'm very excited for. Colts at Chargers. We're about 50-50 split here on this one. Colts are currently the best record in the AFC. The Chargers are a very good team, but they've lost 2 games that they really shouldn't have lost. They lost to the Commanders, and they lost to the New York Giants. This game is at home. I like the Chargers in this one to beat the Colts. Should be a high-scoring game. Could come down to a last-second field goal. But I like the Chargers in this one. This might be my upset pick of the week. Give me the Chargers. Commanders and Cowboys. Seems like the Cowboys have kind of dominated this rivalry for the last few years. You know, they had Tony Romo, now they have Dak Prescott, and the Commanders were kind of not that great of a team. But they're a lot better team now. Even though they lost to the Bears on Monday Night Football a couple days ago, I like them in this game. However, I am going to go with the Cowboys to win. Cowboys are at home, and that's my only reasoning. So give me the Cowboys in this one. George Pickens, does he go off for another 2 touchdowns and 200 yards? Probably not, but he's definitely wide receiver 1 now that CeeDee Lamb is out. Give me the Cowboys in this one. Green Bay Packers, Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals will continue to slide, unfortunately, and the Packers will continue to roll. Give me the Cheeseheads in this one. Sunday Night Football, the Atlanta Falcons and the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the Falcons have really quite impressed me. They've played a couple primetime games already this year. Michael Penix looks like he's doing quite well. Bijan Robinson is the real deal, and he's going to run crazy against this 49ers defense because Fred Warner is out for the year. So this 49ers defense is down. This Falcons offense is up. I'm still going to go with the 49ers in this one at home, but it should be a lot closer than you may initially think. Buccaneers at Lions. Can the Lions bounce back? The Chiefs got them good. And yeah, you're saying, the refs helped out the Chiefs. Again, I don't comment on that stuff here. We can't blame the refs. We just got to roll with the punches, and the Lions lost. That's the fact of the matter. Buccaneers are looking really good. The Buccaneers are a solid team. They are a fantastic team. I'm going to go with the Lions in this one. The Lions seem to know how to beat the Buccaneers. If their defense can hold Baker, they won't. But if they can just outscore Baker, then that's all they need to do. Give me the Lions in this one. Texans and Seahawks. That's another game on Monday Night Football doubleheader. Give me the Seahawks in this one. As good as the Texans defense has been, they're actually probably the number 1 ranked defense in the league this year by statistics. They're 2-3 because the offense just hasn't been able to figure it out. Give me the Seahawks in this one. They're in Seattle. I like what I've seen from Sam Darnold. He's done enough. That Seattle team has won a lot of good games. Give me the Seahawks in this one to round out our Week 7 NFL picks. Again, this is an ESPN Pigskin Pick'em group. Anyone can join. I'll link it down below in the description. Again, let me know. Tune in. Sound up. Who are you rooting for in the Holy War this week? BYU or Utah? Let me know in the comments down below. And thank you guys for tuning in to Fan Talk. This is a podcast you can find anywhere you get your podcast. YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, wherever. Just search Kyle Brenchley Fan Talk. I appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment down below. All right, guys. See you guys later. I'll see you guys next week for another edition of Fan Talk.